recording, and we are now recording. So first off, just want to thank everybody. We are K-12 Art Chat, and I am Matt Grunler, and this is Laura. And we are here with our host, Jason Blair, who's going to be talking tonight about big ideas. And so, Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And you were saying that you are located in Columbus, Ohio. Is that correct?
Yeah, Columbus, Ohio. It's in a suburb outside of Columbus, Dublin City Schools. It's about 25 minutes outside of Columbus, so it's pretty close.
All right. And then you, what grades do you teach?
So I teach 1st through 5th grade at the elementary level, and this is my 15th year. So still learning every day. So
we all. That's one of the best things about education is that we are also getting an education
all the time. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So do you see your kids every day or once a week? How does it work where you are?
I see them once a week for 45 minutes. And we're on a letter rotation, A, B, C, D. So then one class on Monday we would see on Friday. So it all evens out that way.
That actually works because I know in my district we see them only once a week.
Depending on the size school.
True.
That's at a very big school.
I'm in a very large school where we have about 5 different classes for each grade level, and so we're seeing one class each week. So.
How many kids do you have at your school?
Last year, it's coming down a little bit, but last year we were just about 800. So,
wow,
yeah,
that's huge.
And that was and that was K through 5. Yeah. So
yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, so I met you at NAEA, and I actually walked into your presentation. And I was floored. I was just so impressed by the things you were talking about, and the things that you were, that I actually ended up finding a quote that you had mentioned about when the why is clear, the how is easy. So do you think you could elaborate a little bit on that, and maybe like what kind of your take on how you teach?
Yeah, I guess it's twofold really. The why being clear for the kids is just always making sure it's relevant to them and that it's student-centered, and there's choice, but there's also some definite constraints, because I think the misconception of creativity is a free-for-all. Well, it's not that at all. And when you come into my room, it might look chaotic and loud and crazy, but if you sit down next to any kid, they'll be able to articulate exactly what they're doing. But for me, moving forward too, I've also found the why is so important for the community at large, because I am so passionate about the role of creativity and how all children are born creative, that I feel like it's our job to be advocates, not only for the kids in our school about the creative mindset, but also the community at large, and to try to start to break down kind of the misinterpretations of what the art room is and it's all about, and try to push kind of the envelope a little bit and talk about that we're trying to prepare these kids we're trying to harness that creative energy and try to grow it and stretch it and develop it, and not let it atrophy, which it has, unfortunately, over the last couple decades.
Yeah. Standardized testing. I mean, that's my own philosophy.
More
but so it's interesting that you just used several of the studio habits of mind. Do you embed those in your teaching?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think the big thing for me is, I think as I've kind of learned, is that I'm somebody who like I'm sure you guys are and everybody out there, that I'm always kind of wanting to learn more and more. And so you see things all the time on Twitter and articles and everything else. And I kind of get flooded and I kind of think, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that. And I'm kind of changing constantly. And what I've started to realize is that really I just want to hybridize the best parts of all these things that are out there, whether it's the cultures of thinkings, whether it's, Bloom's taxonomy, whether it's, whatever these things that are out there, adopting language we're hearing in other academic circles and business, anything else, just hybridize all of it to help us underscore and lift up the role of creativity in education today and the greater purpose of it in our society as a whole.
I think you just nailed it. I mean, that's
fantastic.
Yeah,
wow.
fantastic. Because so in my role as the curriculum coordinator, I mean, a lot of what I do is trying to synthesize all this information and then help the teachers distill it even further. And there are so many wonderful things out there. Today I had a pre-K specialist come in to ask me about some observational drawing techniques for 4-year-olds. And I was like, well, you could, and I was coming up with all these like things, and she was like, whoa. And I'm like, well, there's design thinking, because she was talking about PBL and all of these things. And it's just so exciting, but you do have to kind of figure out the best parts of each of them and make your own.
Right.
Finished rewriting our Art 1 curriculum for, that first year of high school. And it was really interesting to have, 7 art teachers in the room battling it out about their different pieces and the different philosophies, and then just trying to pick apart the best parts of all of these, like big idea, but also the old school, and I hate to say old school, but it seems a little old school, DBAE, the way, I was trained.
Right.
There's still good foundational things there too. And, just trying to find each piece of that will fit together in a way that makes meaning for children.
And I think that's so important, because I think the other thing that's important too is that, I'm definitely a proponent of trying to get away from almost get away from discipline names, because I think that's kind of pigeonholing us too. And I think now we have a big push on thinking, and I think that's where there's a seat at the table for everybody in every discipline, and especially the arts with creativity. And I think, we have a maker movement with maker labs and fab labs and things like that. And I had a teacher come up to me and ask me, well, if we're having all the making going on, what's the difference between the making that's going on in those maker centers and in the art room? And I thought that kind of puts you back, because you do have to think about that. And what I think the idea of big ideas comes in is that art is truly about a whole child, and it's about getting them to infuse their own personality into an identity, and they can wrestle with these larger life issues, and it helps provide context for learning. When you're talking about identity, or you're talking about consumption or disruption, some of those bigger ideas, that provides a context for learning. And also it provides an outlet for the child to come into the table and say, you know what, I have a voice and I can bring that to it, as opposed to when we close them off with specific disciplines, or if we close them off and say, kind of pigeonhole them and saying, here's what I want you to do, and this is how I want you to do it. So I think that, there's a lot of really good things going on in education. And I think the next hurdle to get over is we really need to start focusing on all across the board on thinking, and not so much content, but on the process and on how to be critical thinkers and creative thinkers and collaborators. And then the other part is all the social emotional skills that are rich in the arts, whether it's, mindfulness, whether it's learning through empathy, whether it's, some of those skills that we know are just as important, if not more important, because they set the foundation for learning. Those are relevant and such a part of the art that it's just another way to underscore the importance and the role of the arts in schools.
Definitely. Wow. Can you just keep talking? Because I'm hoping all of our teachers in our district are listening to this right now. It's so true. I've been, one of the questions I ask teachers, and I know I've said this before, is about, is it the product or is it the process? What's the most important thing? And really, depending on how that question is answered, is pretty pivotal in what direction you take in your classroom.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think the process and the product is such an interesting argument, or just interesting paradox, I guess, that people say, is because I always feel like if you're giving the child the voice to bring their own learning and their own identity to the project or the problem, they're going to find a way to make that product the best product they can be, because ultimately, if it's their voice and their message they want to get out, they're going to do by any means necessary to get that out. So they're going to take the skills that you've taught them. They're going to say, show me more, because I have this idea and I need to get it out. Yeah. Whereas if it was just like, here's the cookie cutter I want you to do, they don't really have any motivation. They don't have any attachment to it. So it's kind of like there's not real drive for them there. So I think it kind of goes back to that big idea and letting the students bring their voice to the table, and then the product will come. But if we focus on the process of getting them engaged and inspired and passionate, then the product will follow, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just spent 2 days with our brand new art teachers in the district, and these are the conversations that we had over and over again, because I truly believe that if you put the emphasis in the process and giving the children a place to express themselves, they're going to take hold, and it's just going to be a magnificent, beautiful thing. And it is really truly like this light bulb moment when you see a kid just latch on and be like, wow, I've got something I've got to get out. And going back to the social emotional piece, you realize that a lot of these kids have experienced things that you couldn't even
fathom.
Yeah, exactly. You can't fathom. You can't walk in their shoes. You know, at the age of 10, they might have been through a whole lifetime of things that we would have never even imagined. And they have to have somewhere to let that out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, it's one of those things. And plus, some of the stuff is stuff that maybe we don't think is that big of a deal.
Right.
But to an 8-year-old, it's a huge deal, you know, and giving them that voice to have that. I always, you know, one of the things I'm really trying to focus on now is this idea that creativity is 365, 24/7, because I think a lot of times, you know, we do want kids who are creative, but really only when it's convenient for us. And the creative personality is 24/7. And it's also one that pushes boundaries, challenges the status quo. They're hard to manage. They can be non-compliant. And that's hard clash of management style. But here's the thing. When a child's walking down the hall and skipping down the hall and we say, stop skipping down the hall, you're eroding that creativity. Because the child doesn't understand that 2 minutes earlier, you said, we're doing a project, you want me to be creative. And now I'm walking down the hall and you don't want me to be creative anymore. I don't get that. So I think the thing I'm trying to get, you know, people to understand is that we have to be mindful that creativity is a mentality. It's not a box on a rubric. It's a mindset. And we have to make sure that we can encourage it rather than discourage it. And, you know, our kids that have arts for 45 minutes once a week, I just want to make sure that that mindset's getting stretched and developed 24/7, 365.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So Matt and I have 3 kiddos and they're, you know, our oldest is going to be 10 in September and the youngest just turned 4. And, I would say all 3 of them have a real creative personality, and you can't. I mean, you just described all 3 of them in their own, you know, separate ways. But it's been hard for us as parents, and I know I've said this one too. You know, to translate that into school, because we live in a home where, you know,
creativity,
of course,
give it a shot, see what happens,
and we value it. I mean, there's supplies everywhere. There's tools. Our 4-year-old sings these awesomely crazy songs all the time, you know, and I would have a real hard time shutting that down. But I know when they go to school, it's do this at this time, and for their little brains, that's hard sometimes. I just, you know, they're from 2 very creative parents, and I mean, half the time I get like 4 hours of sleep just because I can't turn it off, you know, and I know that at least one of ours is that way. But it's hard to express to teachers that maybe aren't on that same wavelength, that it's the fundamental importance of it. So how do you work with your teachers in your building to get that across to them, or to work with them on that concept?
Well, you know, it's interesting, and I'll go back for a second, because I think the interesting point is I completely agree with, you know, I've got 2 kids of my own, and one is definitely, you know, that creativity case study. She pushes the boundaries. And, you know, the example I just gave recently was, you know, I went into my daughter's room and it was torn apart. I mean, the closet was completely empty. Everything was on the floor everywhere. And I walked in and just kind of lost it. I was like, what are you doing? Get this stuff up, get it in there. And then when I finally stopped after kind of losing it about the room, I said, what is going on? She finally told me that she had been watching the show Tiny House on HGTV. And she wanted to make a tiny house in her closet. She cleared everything out. She made a little couch in there. She made a little makeup station, all this stuff. And it made me realize that, you know, as much as I'm with the kids at school, I don't have that, you know, why don't I have that same patience 24/7? And why is it adults go into a room and they see the mess and not what the process was? Because my daughter didn't do that stuff on purpose.
No.
She just was doing it to get to what she wanted in her mind.
Yeah.
And I think in the classroom, you know, sometimes a child's creativity is not convenient for us, but it should be, because, you know, when a child has a messy desk at school and the teacher goes over and says, clean up your desk, that might be the way they think. So you wouldn't go over to them and say, clean up your brain. I mean, you wouldn't do those things. So I think it's hard, like getting back to, you know, the teachers, it's hard, because I think we all are in this together. And I get that, you know, I just want to try to bridge the gap and say, you know what, there's going to be times when that creative mind is going to drive you up the wall. So let's figure out a partnership where, when that happens, find a way to send them down to me and we'll figure something out, and then we'll send them back to get that break. Because I get it. Like it's one thing to have that child for 45 minutes once a week, but to be living with that child, every day in your classroom, maybe there's some times when it's kind of like, okay, I just need, I've got 23 other kids. So I think just trying to find a way to like create other outlets in the building. Like I've tried to work with some other teachers on creating some creativity zones around the school that are just quick little places they could go for 10 minutes to do creativity challenges, to exercise their mind, get out of the room maybe a little bit, have some downtime, and be able to kind of release that. So I don't know, I'm still thinking that through, because I agree. I think it's something we all need to work together on. So
Thursday.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
We have a daily Twitter challenge that we do, and Thursday is Think Through Thursday. So basically, when you have your idea, you just kind of throw it out to PLN, and you say, okay, this is what who's got some ideas on how to make this work, and you'd be surprised at who comes up with an idea. So
that's all. And I'll tell you what, on a separate note, thank you, Matt, for reaching out to, and both of you guys, because I've been trying to follow what you guys are doing and following the videos and everything. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need right now, is just to be able to lock arms with all those creative advocates and be able to march forward and try to lift up everybody. And I appreciate you guys. You've done a huge thing with doing that and harnessing the technology to kind of, make it one big living room for everybody. So I appreciate that. So thank you.
We appreciate you. I mean, It's really about everyone. It's, and that's exactly it, is that we want to be advocates for, all the creative thinkers of the world, I guess, but I mean, we're trying to really, I think one thing is, and Jason, you and I haven't had a chance to talk very much, but I spent 7 years as an assistant principal, which was great, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I needed to get back to the art world. And so I hopped over to the district office. But one of the things I see being on all the different sides of the educational realm is that we just don't have a common understanding about the arts and the importance of the arts. And so that's part of, I feel like our life's mission, is that we have both had the opportunity in our own lives and in other working with children, seeing the arts,
the positive
impact and the lifelong impact that it can have on children of all backgrounds, of all ethnicities, of all socioeconomic status. And it's so powerful. And anyways, but it's just, if we don't shout it to the rooftops, no one will. So that's what we're doing.
Gotta be our own
and that's why you're part of this. But on a different note, don't be so hard on yourself about your parenting and getting on your kids.
Believe me, it goes across the board, and everybody does it. I know we do.
Living with creative children and being creative yourself, your patience does wear thin sometimes. And you're just, like for Matt, 800 children in a building every day. So, there's only so much everybody can do. So you got to give yourself a little pass every once in a while.
Yeah, I know. I'll try to.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard.
It is.
We always just say it's a crazy, wonderful life, and we're going to do the very best we can. And there will be clothes unfolded in the chair in our bedroom and dishes in the sink. But
and art supplies everywhere.
And art supplies everywhere. But it's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah. It is. It is. At the end of the day, it's not hurting anything.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
No.
Well, I think it is about
almost 8:30.
And so
thank you, Jason, for taking the time to do this with us and being our host tonight. So
excited to see.
No, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Well, it's going to be a good chat. It's a great topic, and we really appreciate you hosting it tonight, and really excited just to see all the answers. Your questions are fabulous.
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks,
thank
Jason.
you. Bye.
All right. I'll see you guys. Bye.